Today on CityCast Chicago, The Fugitive is celebrating its 30-year anniversary. Author, journalist, and self-proclaimed superfan Natalie Moore recently wrote that it's the best movie set in Chicago, period. Earlier this year, she told me why it ranks above all other Chicago films and how it creates a full picture of the city. It's Thursday, August 24th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. This may be the thing you are, one of the things you are most passionate about, and one of the most random topics
you are correct.
I think people would expect from a conversation between myself and you. The Fugitive.
One of my all-time favorite movies.
All right.
Not just Chicago movies, just
in general. Natalie Moore. Welcome back to CityCast, Natalie.
Thanks for having me.
For the uninitiated, I'm going to give a quick summary of The Fugitive. It stars Harrison Ford, Tommy Lee Jones. It was directed by native Southsider Andrew Davis, based on a 1960s TV show. Ford plays Dr. Richard Kimball, who's accused of murdering his wife for her life insurance policy. Tommy Lee Jones plays U.S. Marshal Sam Gerard. And it's a 2-hour game of cat and mouse after Kimball escapes on his way to prison in Southern Illinois. He comes face to face with Sam Gerard several times and constantly gets away.
I didn't kill my wife. I don't care.
It's an action scene after action scene, and so many great Chicago spots are featured. Cook County Hospital, the Thompson Center, City Hall, and more. Natalie, when we first started talking about this movie, your face just lit up. I mean, the smile that overcame your screen, as you called it, not only one of your favorite Chicago movies, but one of your favorite movies, point blank, period. When did you see The Fugitive, and why does it have such a strong hold on your heart?
I saw The Fugitive in 1993 at the show at the Hyde Park Theater. Okay, so I guess I'm dating myself. My cousin said, let's go see this movie. And I had zero interest. I saw the trailers. I did not think it would be my cup of tea. I kind of went in begrudgingly like, all right, I'll go. And then just came out and loved it. And I was like, wow, this movie was dope. Every time it's on TV, I watch it. My siblings watch it. We quote it. I have made the children watch it. It's streaming. I'm like, this is a Chicago movie that you have to watch. And another just a little fun fact. Back in the day, the Chicago Tribune used to have a section for teens to write movie reviews. And I auditioned for it. I didn't get it. And I was pretty bummed I didn't get it. But I remember when they chose the people, they said most teens had written about The Fugitive.
I love that all these years later, you still remember the first journalism job
I
you
still
didn't
remember
get.
that. I'm still a little salty about that. I'm like, I wrote Menace to Society. Why didn't you choose that one?
What was it about that 2 hours and 10 minutes in the Hyde Park Theater that you left like, damn, no, that was really it?
Well, one, it's just a really good movie. The acting is good. The pacing is good. You're rooting for Kimball. You kind of like Gerard. You don't want to know what's going to happen. You're on the edge of your seat. So I think just from a story perspective, and, Tommy Lee Jones received an Oscar for this movie for Best Supporting Actor. So the movie did well critically and commercially. I also love that I felt like it showed Chicago accurately. We're always looking at movies, say, that's not there, that didn't happen. And even though this was not a Black South Side movie and didn't show all of Chicago, what it did show of Chicago, I felt was accurate and familiar, and Chicago became a character as well.
Yeah, I was looking through I think it was like Chicago curved map of like locations. And interestingly enough, it bounced around the city a little bit, right? You get up to Lincoln Park where Kimball stayed. Obviously, you got some of those iconic shots on rooftops downtown, during some of the chase scenes towards the end. But even when he is, kind of holding up in that Polish woman's basement.
Right, that's so Chicago.
Co myślisz? Ja myślę, że on będzie zadowolony z tego.
Tak.
So, you like the place? It's okay with you?
It's perfect.
That was like 89th and Commercial, and over on South Chicago, not too far from my mom's house. And so
Yeah.
Kimball got out a little bit and moved around.
I thought that the movie also showed a gritty Chicago, and it felt more like a blue collar working person story. Even though Kimball is this doctor, you were seeing the neighborhoods. We're seeing him even in a uniform shot. We're seeing him in Cook County Hospital with all sorts of people. I mean, they must have used the real extras in there. And then, now that I've gotten older, I also recognize some of the extras who were in the movie. Cheryl Lynn Bruce, the formidable actress here in Chicago, she plays one of the surgeons who is about to operate on the boy that Kendall wheels upstairs. Gene Barge plays one of the police officers in the beginning who says the book on. He's a well-known jazz artist here. And then, of course, they're all the TV people. We see a young Lester Holt. Yep. We see Pam Zeckman, who I used to intern for. So all of those things are super cool, too.
I even caught David Pasquazi was in there playing one of the news personalities, Jane Lynch.
First of all, I want you to know that I believe Richard Kimball to be innocent.
Would he come to you for help?
If he came to me, I would help him. But he wouldn't come to me. That's not his style.
Let's jump into some of these categories. The way we like to break down a movie is not just to go through it and talk about some of our favorite scenes, but maybe give out some of those, best shots. So let's start there. What's one of your favorite shots?
I remember the review that Roger Ebert wrote about the movie, and he talked about the train crash scene being as iconic as the giant boulder chasing Harrison Ford in Raiders of the Lost Ark. So I think that's a natural one to go to.
It said a lot about Dr. Kimball in that moment. The transport vehicle is about to get smashed by a train. The bus is already flipped a few times, and Harrison Ford's character, Dr. Kimball, chooses to save one of the transport officers from that bus versus just sort of letting him get killed while he saves himself.
Give me a hand with this van. How it's you? Come on, give me a hand with this van. Kiss my ass, Doc.
So I think that, of course, is the scene that most people are going to think about. But I also love when he's in City Hall. I mean, this is a place that I go as a reporter that most Chicagoans have been in for one reason or the other. And, running down the stairs and trying to escape and then going into the parade and looking at State Street and the stores that aren't there anymore, being on the rooftop. So I think that if I'm thinking about those best scenes, I mean, there's so many, but I'll just start with those.
That City Hall shot is fire. Just how much time they spend with the spiral staircase. It's one of those moments where Gerard is right on Dr. Kimball. He is like about to catch this man. He runs out into the St. Patrick's Day parade, and all he really do is swap a hat and then fits in with the plumbers, which, like you said, kind of gives it that ongoing homage to the blue collar workers of Chicago. What was the most Chicago moment for you throughout the film?
I'm going to give two. And I live in historic Pullman now. And that's where Sykes lives. So, I'll walk by Sykes' house. I think I have done an Instagram post that says, "We got a car there now," which is the line that one of the deputies gives when they realize that there's an unmarked car that's been watching. Again, that's the South Side neighborhood that you don't see in films, television, or, even covered in the news that much. So that to me was a very deliberate choice. And I think the movie also did a good job of showing how ethnic means white in Chicago. You have Sykes, you have the Polish, you have white people living on the South Side, and showing that part of the South Side. It's not just a Black South Side. And then the other scene I would say is when Harrison Ford and Richard Kimball was coming out of the men's hotel.
Mm.
And that men's hotel still exists. It's right before he goes to the Hilton to confront Dr. Charles Nichols. It's called the Ewing Annex Hotel. But as someone, in reporting and housing, knowing that SRO single room occupancies here, again, showing the SRO to me was a choice, and also showing the grittier part of the loop. This wasn't even when they were downtown, we saw skyscrapers, but they weren't doing Navy Pier. They weren't on the Magnificent Mile. They were on Wells, and that part of the loop still looks like that today, even 30 years later.
Speaking of that scene with Sykes, one of my, if not my favorite quotations from the movie is him getting back home and all those people being there. And he just walks in.
Was this a trench coat convention?
That's one of my favorite parts of the movie.
How you doing, Mr. Sykes?
I'll be doing fine if you tell me what's happening.
I had a little problem.
What, my place or the place upstairs?
Your place.
Well, now.
Step right in, Mr. Sykes.
Yeah, everybody knows my name here. Big happy family, huh?
What is this, a trench coat convention? What the hell's going on?
Go around the corner.
Well, who are you guys? Come on, what the hell's going on here?
What do you think the movie gets wrong about the city?
It gets nothing wrong. I mean, the things that would be wrong are things that don't bother me. When he's on the L, there is no Kimball line. But that's okay. Like, I don't get nitpicky. There's a Kimball stop, but I don't remember if it was a Kimball line. And back in 93, we weren't on the color-coded system. I think it's important to, I'm just going to go deep here. I love the TV show Southside. I love The Bear. Every show about Chicago is not going to encompass all of Chicago. And so when I think about authenticity, I don't think you have to kitchen sink the whole city. And so I felt like The Fugitive gives you a slice that is accurate. It is not all encompassing. It doesn't pretend to be.
And I love that it feels appropriate to the story that's being told, right? You get your hanging L shot, you get your kind of the skyline shot, but they all do feel, sort of built into kind of the fabric of the story.
Yeah, and you're right. All the shots were in service to the story, showing the skyline. And there were a lot of shots that were from up above. They weren't on the ground looking up. It was like from the antennas looking down. And to me, what that symbolized was how big this city is. And finding Richard Kimball is like finding a needle in a haystack. Here you are in this massive place. Where could he be?
So much history wrapped up in the city and the way that the city was portrayed. Do you think this movie could have taken place in any other city?
I'm going to say yes, if that city was treated with the care that they gave Chicago. I don't feel like The Fugitive is a movie about Chicago, but it made great use of the setting. I think this movie could have done the same thing in a Detroit, in a Philadelphia. I think it had to be a major city because you're looking for someone and you can't find them.
Natalie, it has been great to sit here as you get to reminisce on one of your favorite movies, The Fugitive. Thank you so much, Natalie. I imagine our next conversation will probably not be another movie rewatch, but I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. I hope so.
Got to keep it versatile.
Before I let you go, some good news. Enjoy music and dance traditions from across Central and South America as Latinx takes over Navy Pier Saturday and Sunday. The festival is free, and check the show notes for more info. As always, we appreciate you for listening. We're back early tomorrow breaking down some key stories from the week with the homies. In the meantime, in between time, subscribe to our daily newsletter, Hey Chicago, at chicago.citycast.fm. If you got some extra time, go and leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to the podcast. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. Yeah, I'm finna be like straight up. I definitely thought I was finna watch. I was like, is it called U.S. Marshal The Fugitive? Is it called The Fugitive U.S. Marshals? I feel like I'm getting the title wrong. And the thing in my head was I really was banking on being like, what you mean? You think I ain't seen a Wesley joint from the 90s? I saw all Wesley joints from the 90s. And then I started it and I was like, who is Richard Kimball?